First off, I want to start this press conference by congratulating the team on their famous Idaho Potato Bowl dominating win 42-7. But ultimately, this season came up short for what our expectations were. We wanted to make the playoffs. We wanted to win the Pac-12 championship. We fumbled it late against Washington and Oregon, costing ourselves the opportunity. But I'm proud of how the team responded against San Jose State and against Arizona State. But this is the end of that team, and we expect to see a pretty good turnover after the season finally concludes. And that is where we look to start today, following the conclusion of the Idaho Potato Bowl, where we did dominate the Sun Devils 42-7. It was a good showing in every one of our bowl games that we've had outside of the first one against Missouri. We've dominated, and we hope that every year that means that we're going to get better bowl games, but it just doesn't quite seem to happen. For that to happen, we have to make the playoffs, and with that, we've got to look to reload this team. Now, I do expect this to be a pretty quick off-season in terms of how things have gone in the last couple, because our recruiting class is pretty much set. We already have the number one. That could change, though we are still ahead by about 20-ish, 25 points, because we landed 11 5-stars. We also brought in 7 4-stars, and the 3-star, he's a kicker, so he's going to do just fine. Now, as for our coordinators, they are sticking around. We brought in Josh Aruarie in the last offseason when our DC was basically stolen from us to go be Oregon's DC. And, well, we didn't do a good job in trying to get some revenge in that game, quite clearly. Nate Vick, he doesn't exactly fit what we're looking for here, but he's done enough. I think he helps out our quarterbacks, and that is what we really need. And before we can really even get going, we're adding on to our recruiting class as we land the 4-star tackle in Rick Regas out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And to add even on to that is Tyrone Heggie, the 4-star corner who was a top 10, if not top 8 all-around corner in this recruiting class. He's out of Firth, Nebraska. And that takes us right into award season as Tennessee's quarterback wins the Heisman and is Vincent Carvalho, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He is a junior. He ended up beating the senior quarterback from South Carolina. A few sophomores on here as well. The quarterback and wide receiver duo from Miami ended up making the list, so that's fun. Looks like Kofi Dukes, though, did finish the season injured, which is maybe why he's only third in the running. As for other awards, Best Defensive Player Joe Nelson finishes second in the hunt behind Herschel Hickson, who, if I am not mistaken, he did make a couple big plays against us, though Joe Nelson is the better overall between the two, and potentially he could be a first-round pick. Joe Nelson did end up, however, taking the Lombardi Award, which is for Best Defensive Lineman, basically, and I'm pretty sure he won that award last year as well. Narrowing it down to just defensive ends, that one definitely goes to Joe Nelson, again 2 years in a row. We also had Donald Camp in the running for Best Defensive Back, but he was all the way down here at 7. As for All-Americans, we do only get one player on the national first team, and it is Rico Cote, and he has our highest possibility of becoming the first round pick since 2017 for the Stanford Cardinals, so it could be a really big thing here for the team as a whole. On the second team, though, we don't get a single person, but Enrique Heath does make it on the freshman national team despite only playing in, I think, 1 or maybe 2 games this season. In the Pac-12 first team, we do start to get a lot more love, and it is all on the defensive side. Joe Nelson, Sean Howerton, Richardson, Rico Cote, Hennessy, Asher, Camp, and our kicker in Quincy Etienne. So almost our entire starting defense was the first team for the Pac-12. Second team is where we start to see a little bit more love for our offense, as Deshaun Blausay ends up making it. Eugene Brooks, Brian Fowler, who actually ended up getting benched, so that's a little funny. Sony Fotu makes the list, and he's one who has to have a really dominant senior year if he decides to come back, as he has not played the same since his freshman year. Keontae Cantwell and Dylan Stevenson also make it, rounding out our group. And as for freshmen, Gordon Draft actually makes it, the running quarterback here for the Cardinal. Enrique Heath on this list as well. Cassius Sampson, he's subbed in a few times, and I'm pretty sure he picked up a sack almost every time that he did. We also have Alex Markuk, who was starting slot corner, and Tim Easy, who was one of our returners but he's actually at that spot for corner despite not really playing it. But of course, the biggest award of all is your college football national champion, and it is Tennessee. The Heisman winner leads his team on, defeats the number 1 ranked Michigan Wolverines 24-14. Though Tennessee did have the better record, 15-1 compared to 14-2. Ultimately, I think the better team obviously won. As for Oregon, they dropped out in the quarterfinals against Ohio State 45-28, and they were the only one from the Pac-12 that made it. But now for the fun, or maybe not so fun part, depending on who your team is, promotion and relegation. In the ACC, Penn State ended up winning that. Dropping out will be Wake Forest. They went 1-11 without a single conference win. And coming in to immediately replace them is Miami, who actually got relegated last year. They ended up going 13-2, 7-1 in conference, and going right back up, making it to the playoffs. Obviously didn't make it too far in the playoffs, but they're moving back up to the level of competition that they should be playing against. As for the Big 12, Baylor ends up winning that one over Texas A&M, who had the same conference record, and it is Texas Tech who will be relegated. They just get the unlucky bunch, as technically SMU had the worst overall record, but probably a head-to-head put them above Texas Tech. And taking over for them are the Oklahoma State Cowboys, who bounced back in a big way this year. They did not win a single game last year, dropped to the MAC. They're now going to move back up as they went 7-1 in conference, 11-3 overall. As for the Big Ten, Michigan obviously taking that one, as we saw they were the 1 seed in the playoffs. They finished with a 14-2 record, 7-1 in conference. Indiana, though, right behind them. Dropping out is Minnesota, who went 2-10 without winning a single conference game. They will be replaced by Akron, who finished 25th in the national rankings with a 12-2 record, 7-1 in conference. And for our typical mid-break here, we see the Independents. Air Force, they went 6-7. Army goes 8-5, and Navy 3-9. As for the Pac, we saw Oregon ended up beating Colorado. They've been in the Pac-12 championship the last 2 years. Colorado won last year. Oregon takes it this year. Boise State even finishes above us as we finished 4th. Getting relegated out is UNLV. They do not hold on for long. And as for Washington, who was close to being relegated, their win against us actually skyrocketed them up the board here a pretty good bit, saving them from being relegated. And rejoining the Pac will be BYU. They finished this season ranked 23rd with a 12-2 record, 7-1 in conference. And lastly, we have the SEC, one of the smallest conferences in college football. Tennessee wins it 15-1, 7-1 in conference, and it is USF that will be dropping out. I don't remember if they were the ones that came up last year, though I have a feeling they were. And they will be replaced by Georgia Tech, who is getting their first opportunity, I believe, back in at the SEC in this series, as they went 11-3, 7-1 in conference, getting by UAB. But now the moment that changes the course potentially of this offseason is the players leaving. We were expecting 19. Who declares to go early to the draft, and who decides they might want to transfer? Well, off the gate, it only looks like one player looking to go early, and that is Jermaine Hennessy. Technically, he was here for 3 years, so he is eligible, and anyone who declares to go that is in 3rd round or higher, we do not stop them from going. So Hennessy will be leaving, which means Asher should be coming back for his senior season. And surprisingly, it was his second who actually jumps ahead of him. So that's interesting, and he does become, if he is drafted in the 1st round, potentially our first round pick since 2017. What are the other ones look like here? Rico Cote is also projected 1st round. Joe Nelson down in round 3, despite all the awards he has won during his college time. That is a little interesting. Howerton expected to go in the 4th round. 5th round for Richardson. His senior year really helped him out there. And Bryce Haddad down in the 7th round. Parrish right now not projected to go. Would probably be a decent UDFA signing. Lucas didn't expect him to go anywhere. Buck not going anywhere, that very much expected. None of our offensive linemen look to be going, as we have 3 of our 5 starters looking to graduate. We already saw Nelson, Howerton, Stevenson not expected to be drafted. We got 3 linebackers leaving, and Roseboom shouldn't have been leaving because I redshirted him. It looks like the game maybe forced him out onto the field, so we're going to lose an opportunity. He could have maybe seen some rotation this year. That is really unfortunate. We also will be losing Brandon Nicholson, though that one expected. A couple safeties graduating in Richardson, who didn't see any playing time, and Jalen Day-Sumlin not expected to be drafted either, though he always played much better than his ratings. But the real surprise is that Donald Camp is not projected to be drafted. He played extremely well. Again, he would probably be a really good UDFA guy if he doesn't end up being taken in the 7th, and ETN not expected to be drafted either. And when the results come in, no other guys end up being drafted, but some do end up going earlier than expected. Rico Cote and Jermaine Hennessy both go in the 1st round. This is the first time a Stanford Cardinal has been drafted in the 1st round since 2017, as we are 5 years into the future of real life. This is now 2029. So that is over 10 years since the last Stanford Cardinal was selected in the 1st round. Big things being made here by Coach Barrington, and both Cote and Hennessy were recruited by Coach Barrington. That is the big thing here. We're starting to see recruits that were brought in by Coach Barrington now going to the draft. And in fact, 5 of these guys were all brought in by Coach Barrington. Richardson was one of the last remaining original Stanford Cardinal, but I believe Howerton and Richardson go earlier than expected, as well as Bryce Haddad. Overall, that's a very good draft here for the Cardinal. Well, that takes us to the recruiting portion of this offseason, where we have already landed every player out of high school that we were looking to bring in, and it was a very good class here for the Stanford Cardinal, still on top here by now almost 20 points. So those additional guys that we brought in, they help solidify that, and potentially any transfers we look to bring in will help that even more. And just looking at overall talent on who is going to be available here for us, there are some 4 stars that are interested in our Cardinal. One is a linebacker who played at Cal in Gastineau. I don't remember playing against him. He would end up being a junior from Seattle, Washington. He's a run stopper, 5'11", 224. With Roseboom leaving, despite us redshirting him, the computer forced him to play, I guess, on special teams. We might need to bring in a linebacker, so let's add him to the list. We just lost Joe Nelson. Sony Fotu did not decide to leave early, so we don't necessarily need edge rush help. We have a lot of good young talent, and I think they deserve to see the field. So we're going to skip on Lord. Though, thinking back to it actually, Lord was the guy that single-handedly wrecked the game for us. And wouldn't that be fitting for us to try to bring him in? I think we at least take a look here at Lord. At guard, we have Steven Batonio. Wonder if he's related to the NFL offensive lineman of Batonio. Obviously not a real person in real life, but we're going to say, yeah, probably here for this series. So let's take a look in at him. And honestly, past Batonio, where you get into some 3-star guys, and I think with all the really young talent we have, the 5 stars we've brought in, they wouldn't see any playing time. So we're going to keep to just 3 potential transfers. And since we have all the points to spend on them, we will be fully scouting each of these guys, as it only takes 2 goes here for Gastineau. He does have really good tackle, 94. Speed is at 84. Block shedding, 79. Zone is at a 70. All in all, he does seem to be a pretty solid guy, so why not? Let's try to bring in as much talent as possible here. We'll toss in the scholarship. We still can add a little bit more here, so we will go all out on these guys, because again, we got the point. 65 going to Gastineau, and on top of that, we could look to schedule a visit as well. We don't know exactly what he likes, though coach prestige is important, so let's find that. And it will be a one-on-one with Coach Barrington. Now, as for Rashad Lord, not only was he picking up sacks on us, he got TFLs, and he picked us off like 20 yards downfield. So this guy should be a really good overall talent. 82 finesse moves, as he is listed as a speed rusher. I expected that to maybe be a little bit higher. He's got 81 speed, 88 strength. Don't know what the block shedding is. 91 tackle. He may not be top end talent. He might be pretty similar to a lot of the other guys we have, but if we take him, he can't do that against us anymore. So let's just try to help ourselves out here. We'll put 75 into him as we have the points available. And he also has coach prestige. So let's schedule a visit. We'll do another one-on-one and tell him, hey, you destroyed us. Don't do that. Come join us. Now, as for Steven Bitonio, always need offensive line, that is for sure. We saw how much that affected us late on in this one. He is a power guard. We like power guards. He would be a senior transferring in with 88 power for both pass block and run block. Lead is a 97. He's slow with 58 speed, but he's got good strength, 82 run block. Don't know anything about the pass blocking outside of the power, but I think he's good enough here for us. We'll send him a scholarship, and once again, we'll send him all the points that we can. We'll get him in on a visit. Playing style is important for him. So that means we are going to have him attend an off-season practice. Not sure those are legal, but I guess we're going to be doing that here. And he decides to come to Stanford. We land Rashad Lord out of Corvallis, Oregon. He was actually looking to go to Oregon. We not only pull him away from Washington, we pull him away from Oregon. That is a huge win for us in just keeping talent away from our rivals. Unfortunately, that is not the case for the linebacker in Paul Gastineau. He does decide to go to Oregon. And we are also technically battling Oregon here for Bitonio. He's from Roy, Utah, and Gastineau is from Washington. So these guys all from the region at least, but we do at least take one guy away from the Oregon defense, trying to keep a pretty good offensive lineman away from them as well. And we do steal Bitonio away from them. So we land 2 of the 3 transfers we were looking for, and that rounds out our recruiting. Now, with National Signing Day here, that officially means the Stanford Cardinal brought in the top recruiting class. 273.15 points. Oregon, they finished second, 249.2. And their top guy that was brought in was Gastineau. So it took until the offseason when they transferred to bring in that level of talent. Meanwhile, our top 2 are guys that are brought in from high school. Augustine was the #1 recruit in all of college football. We brought in Council, who is another top guy at his position. This is a fantastic recruiting class that includes the top corner as well, with legend Anagbar. And with Jermaine Hennessy leaving, could he perhaps be stepping in and starting as a true freshman? Well, he's definitely got a lot of competition, but he comes in as a true freshman, 77 overall. But we have Ty Holly, Chad Johns, Kevin Salmon, Tim Easy, and Alex Markuk, who are all going to see some improved overall before him. So he might not be starting this year, but he should be a really good guy down the line. Now, as for our first move we're going to make in this offseason, I think Alan Page would be better fit at free safety. His 6'3", 184. He's got some good speed. The problem is his man is very low at a 71. Press is also at a 71. It's not awful, but it's not great. But he's got zone of 84. That just tells me he's a zone cover guy. He always will be a zone cover guy. And that would fit better for us with a roaming free safety. It also moves him up in overall. So that is going to be our first change. Now at strong safety, with the style of play that we like to play with, we have an issue. And that is the fact that we don't really have a very strong man coverage guy. Our best option here is Soma Pua, who would be a sophomore heading into this year. I think we got to make some changes, shuffle around some safeties, and that starts with Kenya Das. He would fit better for us as a free safety. Again, he's got the zone, he doesn't have the man. Alex Wesovich, he has about 70 man, 80 zone. Again, that would probably fit better over at free. He's got some decent speed as well, so we'll be making another shuffle move here. And lastly would be Noah Hare. We also want to move him over to free as well. just trying to reorganize this group here. It's what we're going to have to do for a lot of these. Now, do we have some guys with some man? Stan Madden. Yes, we do. 76. He can move on over to strong. We need that man coverage over there. And right now we have Chuck Atkins, who kind of played a bunch of different safety spots for us, a little bit of slot corner as well. He's now the senior with an opportunity to start. He was stuck behind Jalen Day-Sumlin. And it looks like it would probably be the best opportunity to move him over to strong, give us the highest overall across the board. So we will do that. That leaves us with a lot of free safeties. We'll see who makes the biggest jump. Kenya Das, the freshman, might be that guy. Strong safety, we have 3. Oh, and look who did end up sticking around. Well, I guess it is a good thing then that we ended up not getting that linebacker who went to Oregon, because Roseboom is actually here. So the game did not force him off the team. That is good news. Hopefully he takes a big jump. We got 3 there, 2 over here. Kiki, he was redshirted last year. Expect him to take a big role this year. And we got 4 over here, so I think we got to move someone. Let's move Waddle over to the left end to even up this roster. And he ends up staying the same overall at a 74. Now, DT-wise, we have a lot of new faces that we're going to see here. Cantwell was around last year. He's in for his senior year. We're going to see a little bit more of Keelan Levine, Paschal, and Blair. We're looking to join them, perhaps Augustine. I mean, he does have speed, 84. Strength is an 89. He's listed as a power rusher. He doesn't have much finesse moves, so maybe we don't look to move him to DT, but perhaps he plays some interior rush for us down the lines. Now, offensive line-wise, we have a lot of people, and we do probably need to shuffle them around. Want to keep the pass blockers on the outside, guys who are agile. They could look to move inside. So Carl Lewis, he's an agile offensive lineman. And it looks like he would fit best probably at guard, where we do only have 2 at the left position. So let's make that adjustment. And over at the right tackle spot, I'm okay with having more of the agile or power guys here because that is more of a run blocking position. But if they are bad at pass blocking, I would like to move them into the interior, where we do need a little bit more help, especially if they're much better at the run blocking spot. So someone like Rick Regas, who we brought in, 6'8", 285. Strength is at a 90. We got a good lead block with him, 82. I mean, it's not bad. We could definitely look to shuffle him to the interior. And again, looks like left guard or right guard would be his best option. We could add him to the left guard spot. Now for Ringo, a freshman that we brought in. He's 6'2", 296. That size, and the fact he needs a little bit of help in the pass blocking tells me he might be better fit for center. We need some depth there. He's going to drop in overall. But that gives us a pretty even spread here for our offense. We have 4 at left tackle, 4 at left guard, 3 at center, another 4 at right guard, and we have a pretty good stockpile here over at right tackle. Now, tight end wise, this is going to be a group that I really want to see take that next step. Buck, I feel like he was a little bit of a hindrance. He never really took that second step after his sophomore year. And Nenny and Gomez, they might be battling out for it. We'll see if Kramer sees a big jump. We added Selvia, who is another top tight end from this recruiting class. It was just a weaker tight end group. But this is a group that has a lot of speed, pretty good strength. The hands are there. What about the run blocking? And then he's good. The rest can use a little bit of some work. The big area for us is at receiver, as we brought in 3 different 5-star freshmen. Virgil Rowland being the highest overall of them, 79 overall. And burying some of these other guys down here, Carmona, Lekator, they might be on their way out depending on what our roster size looks like. Thrash is a 74 and Sturm a 73. Those 2 will probably be redshirted. We'll see if Roland does again depending on how these guys progress. And we only have 2 athletes to find a spot for. First, starting with Isaiah Whitaker, listed power back as his tendency. And it does show that running back would be his best fit. 6'1", 232. Out of Lebanon, Oregon. We will be adding him to the running back group. And I already know that Wesovich is also at least listed as running back. He also could be a little bit of an edge rusher here for us. I don't think we need the depth there, so power back at 6'3", 239 out of Chantilly, Virginia. We add a 5-star to the running back group, and that really gives us some good depth now moving forward. where we originally just had Dog, Thomas, and Sulai. Wesovich comes in a 78, Whitaker a 73. Those two will probably be redshirted, and we'll rock with these three. Well, that brings us to the biggest stage here on what is really gonna affect our next season, and that is training results. Do we see a good step? Do we see guys really not take any step? Do we even see guys maybe regress perhaps? Let's take a look. I'm really hoping the quarterbacks took a good step forward. And as we get going here, Enrique Heath is now the highest overall, a true 90, but with some boosts, he's up to a 93. Antonio Asher maybe took a step or two, but not too much going forward. Sony Fotu breaks into the 90s. Fowler, he maybe grew a little bit here, but that leaves us here with 5 total guys, 90 plus overall. At the quarterback spot, Gordon Draft, he's all the way up to an 88 overall. Terrell is at a true 80, so he really didn't see much growth. Avant also still at an 80. Azuma didn't see much growth. Sutton didn't, and Savoy didn't either. Do we have a new starting quarterback in Gordon Draft, a guy written off as just a scrambler here for us? He's going to come in with 92 throw power, second lowest on the team. Short accuracy, though, is second best. Avant has the highest there at 97. Medium, again, tied for second best. Avant does have the higher. And as for deep ball accuracies, it's technically second best, but Avant has by far the better accuracies. So will Avant be our starting quarterback heading into our senior year? And Gordon Draft just using a couple more key packages. That's been something I've been considering. Making some packages specifically for Gordon Draft in a kind of like quarterback power formation, maybe even a wildcat type. As for the running back spot, it is actually pretty tight here. Montrell Dog, an 86. Zach Thompson, also an 86. They are very similar in speed. Dog is getting a slightly higher boost overall. Accuracy's the same. A little bit more agility with Thompson. Strength, though, you're going to have Dog. Carrying, Dog. Ball carrier vision is Dog. Break tackle by far is Thompson. Trucking, even. Stiff arm, pretty much even. And then spin move. So you're going to have a little bit more maybe variety here with Thompson. I think we're going to really have to focus on having a 2 running back system this year, splitting between Dog and Thompson. Though who's going to take over in terms of the third down catching? That's going to be Thompson. So that will definitely help us split those carries a little bit more, at least split the snaps. At receiver, we're coming into this year with 3 with the boost, 87 overalls. Overall, this is a very, very good looking receiving group. We might have to trim down the bottom here. Ed Keenan, his senior year, might have to move on somewhere else. We'll see again what our total is. But Deshaun Blouse, 85-87. Patrick Moses, 85-87. And Casey Lanier, 85-87. And I think what we're going to do this year, depending on if that release changed much, it actually did change a little bit. What about catch in traffic? It's pretty good as well for Lanier. I think we could really shake things up a little bit here. Deep route running, and a lot of these guys are short. You're going to have Blouse with the medium. He found a lot of success that way last year. I think we might stick with Moses in the slot, that big body type. Get Lanier on the outside. He has a little bit more speed, more acceleration. Might be able to stretch the field a little bit more. That was supposed to be Haddad's role last season. But we also see a big jump here for Ben Vallejo. He's up to an 84. We have George Ball, another 85, technically the same overall as these guys up top. I don't think we would have a bad receiving group no matter who we put out there. So maybe we're just going to see heavy rotation at that receiver spot this year. If the stamina drops a little bit low, easy sub out, get them right back up, keep them healthy. That should be a fun thing for us to try out, and maybe add some even like 4 or 5 receiver sets out there. At the tight end spot, it is Emmanuel Gomez who takes the bigger step. 85 overall, 82 true, and then he add an 80. Kramer up to a 79. The question is, how did the run blocking improve, if at all? And it did actually go up a good bit here for Emmanuel Gomez, so very comfortable rocking with him. In terms of the catching, he does have the better hands. Route running, better across the board. He has the release. I think Gomez is going to be tight end 1 this year. He's got the better speed, excel, a little bit better strength. And Nenny, he did pretty well as that tight end 2. Hopefully Gomez returns Stanford to tight end U. Getting to the offensive line, we got Vaughn and Deere. Deere the senior, Vaughn the redshirt freshman. And just taking a look at the pass blocking out the gate, Deere might be the starter with that 95. Overall, he's a much more balanced blocker as well, so Deere in line to start here left tackle. Over at left guard, Kona Osgood. The sophomore outgrows Joe Boone, the senior. The one thing with Boone, that 99 pass block power looks really good, but the pass block finesse is really low. We might have to see a rotation at that spot, play the hot hand for sure, and whoever is struggling ends up getting benched. How are we looking at center? Telvin Byam finally has the opportunity to start if we don't move someone else over him. Conklin, though, right on his heels. We'll see if either of these two break into that starting spot. The problem we have with Byam is that pass block power is a 67 with a boost. And at right guard, where you do have Enrique Heath and Fowler, potentially one of these guys shifts down to that center spot and gives us a better overall starting line. Honestly, even Cisco could potentially do that at 6'2", 280. Right tackle wise, Ahala still the highest overall, Fernandez on his heels. Maple's not too far behind either. Should be a really good line for the future, though all 3 of these guys are redshirt juniors. Getting to the defensive side, Nathan Henderson, 85 overall, overtakes Najee Cook, who did see the field a little bit last year and played very well. We also have Kamara, who's a little bit behind those guys. Taking a look at the rush moves here, it is better across the board still for Cook. Block shedding, though, not the case, so Henderson probably would be the starter in the base formations, 3-4, 4-4, 4-3, things like that. And then nickel and dime would be Najee Cook. We also have to account for the talent over here at right, and Sony Fotu obviously going to be starting. But you also have Cassius Sampson, and he has a lot of talent. You have Gregory Carlisle as well. So I just think in general, we're going to see a lot more rotation at spots this year. We're not going to see the same guys out there in every formation. Down the middle, that is interesting and a surprise. Paschal, he outgrows Keontae Cantwell. Strength-wise, they're very similar. Speed-wise, Cantwell is better. You got 88 power moves here for Cantwell. Overall, he's just the better rusher. Better block shedder, though, is Paschal, but the overall best run stopper looks to be Keelan Levine. So again, just depending on that formation, we might see some rotation here. Strength, though, 82 for Levine. That might hurt his chances. At outside linebacker, a big jump here for Kiki Harulahu, if I'm remembering that pronunciation correctly. He jumps up to an 87, 89 overall with the boost. He's got good speed, 93. He's got the strength. Perhaps he could be a great Rico Coat replacement. 91 tackling, good hit power, 84 for the block shedding. He's got power moves. We could send him on blitzes. Coverage is looking pretty good as well. Oscar Coley behind him, not too bad either. At middle linebacker, James Tuttle, 85. He does outgrow Tyrone Roseboom, so that red shirt doesn't seem to have helped him. In fact, maybe hindered him. Tackling is better with Tuttle. Awareness and play rec is better. Both can hit like a freight train, that's for sure. Block shedding's better with Tuttle. How about the coverage? Coverage is better with Roseboom, so perhaps he would be in the race for a third down style linebacker. Outside on the right-hand side, Thad Smith. He goes up to an 87 overall. That's going to hurt Roseboom's chances. Darren Sr., who's a sophomore, 83 overall. This is a very strong-looking linebacker group with only one senior in Roseboom. To the corners, Antonio Asher we saw was the 92. Markuk, he does take a good step up to an 86. The problem with him, that man coverage is so low, but he has the best combination between zone and man until you get down to Chad Johns, the sophomore. He's got good speed, not that of Salmon or Markuk, but the awareness is really low. So we might have to play around with these guys. All in all, the press is getting much better across the board. Getting to the safeties, as we will have new starters this year. Alan Wesovich from Duncanville, Texas. Is he related to the other running back that is not listed on this thing. We might have to check in on that. But getting back over to the safeties then, Wesovich, 84, 82 true. Max Schlegel, 83 true, 84 overall. Very, very close here. You get better man with Wesovich, less zone. Better zone, but less man with Schlegel. So again, some more competition. Better play rec with Schlegel, better awareness with Wesovich. So opportunities to try to find a starter here, or again, just heavier rotation. Strong safety spot. We do have Chuck Atkins holding that down. Man coverage didn't improve as much, but he has the better zone. So all in all, he's the better all-around guy to start there. We do have a new kicker, and then Vitale Mays. He maybe grows up a little bit here, up to an 84 overall. But unfortunately, we did bring in more people than we had leaving. And that means 4 people will have to leave. And we already know that at receiver, we have a lot of options to look to move off of. And I think Lacouture, he's definitely going to be one of them. He's a junior, and he only has 82 speed. He's never going to break it into the starting lineup. We will encourage him to transfer. On top of that, we have Carmona, another junior. We're going to look for him to move on as well. And I feel bad about it. I really do. Ed Keenan at one point was a starter, but he reached his peak so early on. It would be best for him to move off and maybe even go find a group of 5 to go play at. Ed Keenan, we appreciate your time here. We appreciate that kick return or punt return you had against UW. But your time here as a Cardinal's done. And I think our last one is going to be Cordell Maples. He's another junior, and we've just got freshmen who are basically already as good as he is. I think, again, he would be best to move off elsewhere, and maybe another group of 5, or honestly, offensive linemen, they could find spots anywhere. So we'll be moving off of Maples. He'll be our final forced transfer, basically, our final cut. And that gets us down to our 85. And the last thing I want to do here is to take a look at our schedule. Now, I already made the adjustments to the teams we're going to play. I want to open up against Liberty because I don't believe we've played them, although we might have played them once already, but I want to play some of the new teams in what might be a little bit of a warm-up game. Then we're going to play against an SEC team in Georgia. Haven't played against them yet. Then I want to go play against a Big 12 team because I don't think we played against them, and I know TCU and Stanford, they've played against each other in opening games or close to opening games of the seasons. The only thing we need to adjust here is the home games, because right now we have 2 early, and then we get into conference play, and most of these are home games. In fact, all of the games that we have here that are home games take up the 6 that we should have. So Notre Dame, I don't remember if we played them at home or not last year, but that one needs to be away. And that gives us 4 away games, including TCU. So that means we are going to Georgia and we are going out to face Liberty. So we're going to open the season with 3 straight away games. That'll be a tough stretch, also against 2 ranked teams. Then we open up with a home game, start that stretch where we have 5 straight home games, with our last one being against Oregon. So that means we got to get on top of our recruiting early on in weeks 0 through 4. So that way we could try to start to get some visits scheduled before we run out of home games. But as mentioned, that would be our final thing to go over here. I will set up the recruiting board and the prospects, and I'll show you what we're going after next time. Due to time constraints, got to narrow that down a little bit. We also will maybe have a little bit of a practice look before we get into the games, just to highlight a few of the new starters. Any scheme changes, playbook changes, we will go over next time. So make sure you don't miss it. Hit that bell icon in the bottom right or scroll down to the sub button and definitely tap that bell icon so you're notified of when these videos go live. We'll have one final episode for this series left in the year. That will be on Monday. And then we'll get into a whole new year with a new season underway here with our Stanford Cardinal. We also have the Jags every single Tuesday and Thursday on Madden. So a lot coming at you with hopefully a little bit of a change up happening in the new year. We'll talk about that soon. But until then, we'll see you next time as the Stanford Cardinal begin a new season next time.